Pay attention to what you return to when life gets heavy. That's usually where your foundation is. What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to yet another episode of the Christian Girl Podcast. I am your host, Debbie, and if no one's told you this today, you are loved, you are seen, and you are enough. Not because of what you've done or who you are, but because of the one who made you. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, and I am so happy to be back. And before we get into today's conversation, I just want to wish you a happy new year. I pray and I hope that this year finds you a bit more gentler, that you are more grounded, and that you are more intentional with everything you set yourself out to do this year. And while all that matters, I want this episode to be a sort of reminder that how you build matters just as much as what you are building. So it's kind of poetic that our first podcast of the year is all about foundation. Lately, I have been thinking about this quite a bit. We put so much energy into building, into growing, into becoming, and honestly, in just keeping it together, but we rarely pause to check what's actually holding it all together. When the foundation is weak, even the smallest of storms can shake you, and sometimes even knock you flat. And that is why I think it's very important to understand what our foundations in life and our foundations in various things are. And the thing is, I have been sitting with this whole idea of strong foundation versus weak foundation for quite some time now. I think it's been around 2 months, so that's around 8-ish weeks. And it's been a very interesting thing, and it's been very interesting hearing my own inner dialogue, trying to answer that question of what a strong versus what a weak foundation is actually like. And then something happened that just kind of like made it all click, and I was like, oh, wait. So the story goes like this. I was at the salon getting my hair done. The first time I was there, they did not do a very good job, so I had to go back the second time to have them fix it. Now, the lady who was sent to correct the hair, after she had cut all the weave out of my hair and had seen the cornrows that were placed before sewing the hair back on, after she saw those cornrows, she went and I quote, "It's the foundation. It wasn't well done." When I tell you I got goosebumps from hearing that small statement, it was around the same time that this whole idea of foundation came to my mind. It was just mind blowing and mind shocking to some extent. And the thing is, because the foundation of my hair was weak, it affected the entire outcome, and they literally had to undo the whole hairstyle, everything from the weave to the cornrows to blow drying my hair again before they could start now a fresh and new foundation. And that was quite something. The fact that they had to undo everything to fix it again. This episode was supposed to go up in December, but because of so many factors, it has been delayed, and this is when I am finally recording it. And honestly speaking, I feel like it might be for a reason, and I do hope that it is for a reason. You'll see that as we continue. But before we even talk about a weak or a strong foundation, we kind of need to define what a foundation in and of itself is. In and of itself, a foundation is basically the thing you build on, something that you build something on. And in this concept, we're speaking about the foundation of our lives, the foundation of your life. So this is basically the truth, the belief, the source you rely on when things are falling apart or things get hard. It's basically where you run for stability, for identity, and for direction. Your foundation is literally what you trust the most. And whether you realize it or not, everybody has one. When the lady at the salon said it's the foundation, it hit me because that's exactly how life actually works. A lot of us are trying to build beautiful things on foundations that were never meant to hold them. We're building on people's approvals, on relationships, on achievements, on money, on productivity, on emotions, or even our own strength. And then we wonder why we're constantly crashing out, why nothing we do seems to hold up, and why it seems like whatever we do is never enough, no matter how much energy, how much work, how much care, how much intentionality you put into it. As we all know, I am very well known for calling myself out on this podcast. And this is another thing. In different stages of my life, I have found myself questioning my foundation in my faith, in my friendships, in my relationships, and even at work. And looking back now, I realize that many of the decisions I made weren't actually rooted in peace or in truth or in me being convicted that those were the right decisions. They were rooted in fear. This is fear of being judged, fear of being rejected, and fear of being alone. As humans, we were not created to be alone. We were created to be, how do we call it again? A community, to have relationships with people. So I think fear of being alone is something that a lot of us actually do struggle with. Not that I am using this as an excuse, but I was bullied pretty severely in high school. And even now, years later, I sometimes notice how certain words or situations still trigger reactions in me. Reactions I thought that, were left behind because, like, this is a new me, new year, new me. Anyways, and it made me realize something that I think is very, very important to remember. When fear becomes part of your foundation, you don't build freely, you build defensively. And that will cost you so much. I mean, ask me. No, just ask me. Mm, yeah. So for a long time, I thought that I was standing on solid ground. I thought that, nothing can shake me. I am standing tall. But really, I was just trying not to fall. It was like hanging on by a thread because I couldn't fathom where my foundation was. I couldn't fathom, okay, what is this thing I need to run to when I need my energy, when I need my happiness, when I need my joy to be refueled, when I need to feel purposeful, when I need to feel like I am actually doing something that matters. Where do I go? Like, I can't say I had a solid, okay, this is what Debbie does whenever she's trying not to fall apart. This is what Debbie does whenever life becomes a bit too hard. Like, I never had any of that. And that's why this idea of foundation has been so confronting to me because I've had to relearn what a strong foundation actually looks like. Not a foundation built on people's opinions, on religious pressure, or my ability to get it right. African culture, we have way too much pressure, but one built on God Himself. And the more I live on this earth, and the more I grow in my work with God, and the more I grow as a person, I realize that if your foundation is slightly shaky, no matter how high you get, you will collapse. We have seen it happen with buildings. We have seen it happen with aircraft. We have seen it happen with furnitures. If the foundation is not stable, if the foundation is not strong, no matter how high that building rises, or no matter how beautiful that furniture looks, it will collapse one way or another. In the weeks leading up to recording this podcast episode, I found myself questioning my relationship with God in a way I hadn't before. I was second guessing my discernment. I was wondering if I could even trust myself spiritually. I mean, it's a very hard place to be and a very hard place to explain as well. But it felt like the ground under me was literally shifting. It felt like the ground under my faith was literally shaking and shifting, and I didn't know what to do. And I feel like most of us Christians haven't really mastered how to help someone when they're in that state. Because most of us will just be like, pick up your mat and walk. Yes, there are times to tell someone, pick up your mat and walk, and times where, okay, I am listening. Tell me, when did you start feeling like this? Guys, let's go to therapy. I will never stop advocating for therapy. Let us go to therapy. It teaches us to be a bit more human with ourselves and with the people around us, so we don't have crazy expectations of ourselves and of the people around us. Okay? Thank you very much. Anyways, and on top of that, there's also the noise, the opinion, the policing, heavy on the policing, sometimes from within the body of Christ over things that honestly feel so small compared to the brokenness in this world. Like, and I realized just how easy it is to confuse other people's rules with God's voice. Because a lot of times I feel like we hold God to the standard of people we meet in church, which is a whole story and a whole conversation on its own. We shouldn't do that because humans are bound to fail. Humans are bound to break your heart. Humans are bound to just be human, to be honest. And I was recently reminded of the fact that I too I am a very faulty human when I was on a phone call with a friend of mine and they mentioned something that I had done years ago that I had literally forgotten about. I was very harsh and I was very rude. Rude is not even the statement here. Harsh and bitter are the words to use. And when they were telling me that, like it came up in conversation, it's kind of reflected that. When it came up in conversation, I I did not fathom that I, Deborah, could ever say such words to another human being. But it was such a human moment that reminded me, Deborah, you too are bound to the humanness of humans, if that makes sense. And the other thing that struck me was number one, the fact that I do not remember it. And number two, the fact that they still remember it vividly. So, in as much as we try to tell people, don't listen to the words, just ignore them, this is our favorite advice to give, especially when it comes to the church. Words do so much damage, and you, as the person saying those words, might not remember what you have said, but the person you say them to, trust and believe, they will remember them. I mean, it's been like 7 or 8 years since that incident happened, and I kid you not, I'm trying to remember it in my brain, but like, you see how easy it is for us to like forget the things we are saying because we're just hashing them out, but for them, they're consuming it. It's being spoken to them. And this is why I also say verbal bullying is also bad, okay? Because words literally do stick with us. But here's another thing I am learning though. I am learning that a strong foundation in God doesn't mean never questioning. It doesn't mean never struggling with your faith. I think that it means knowing where to return when everything else feels unsteady. So it's not like, oh, I am standing here with God, I am unshaken. Oh, I should never question anything in my life because God knows best. God knows every single thing. It just looks like just return back to God. Like go back home, go back to your roots. And our roots as human, I don't know why we keep forgetting that our roots is literally God. So every single time life feels a bit disconnected, or every time it feels like we're kind of struggling, that's the only place we can actually return to when everything starts to feel unstable again. Okay? Thank you very much. And the thing I love so much about God is the fact that when He is your foundation, He does not shame you for needing to rebuild. Like if God is your foundation, and let's say you were working, and then you stumble, He does not shame you for needing to rebuild. An example I like to give is, let's say you're a Christian, and then you get pregnant out of wedlock. It doesn't mean that God is gonna cast you away and cast you and your child. No, if you stand up and say, okay, God, I'm coming back to you, rededicating myself to you, He's not going to shame you. He's not even going to remind you that of what you did to get pregnant. He's just gonna be like, you know what, I got you, pick up your mat and walk with me, hold my hand, like hold my hand. And I think that is such a beautiful thing. And also the thing I love the most about this whole thing is the fact that He also won't rush the process of rebuilding you, because sometimes He also allows everything to be undone, not to punish you, hear me out, not to punish you, but to simply protect what He's actually trying to build within you. And I think I have experienced this firsthand when it comes to friendship. I am a lover girl. I love intensely, even in my platonic relationships, but there were times that it felt had to feel like I had no friends, all because I was in a season. But also, I don't like when people say, I'm in a season of waiting, I'm in a season of blah, blah, blah. Because if you're constantly in a season, when will you ever live life? If you're constantly in a season of waiting for something from God, when are you going to worship Him? When are you going to share the gospel? So let's tone it down with a season of waiting. But you get what I mean. I hope you do get what I mean. I feel like I am too hyper excited. This is my first podcast in I don't know how long. Makes sense. So I just want to echo this one more time for the people at the back. Rebuilding doesn't mean you failed. It simply means that you finally noticed that your foundation mattered and you decided to do something about it. And the funny thing is, I met with a client a few days ago, and we were going over their last year's reports and analytics while going over this year's projections. And one thing they mentioned was, in the workplace, when you have a good employee who knows their craft, they know how to do their craft well, but they're arrogant, it is better to nip them at the butt before, or instead of letting them continue. And then it gets to a point where if you actually do take action, it might reflect negatively on your business. So the example they gave was someone who's really good at, let's say, doing nail art. You're working with them, you see that they don't have the best attitude, they're not the most compliant, they're ignorant, they're arrogant. If you fire them right at the beginning, it will cost you less than if you waited for you guys to acquire more clientele, more people they work on for you to fire them. Because now people are going to come and say, oh, wait, so and so, she used to do really good nails. Now you see, you as a business will be at a loss, and you'll have to find someone new who's going to have to replace that. I hope that makes sense. And I've been really thinking about that, and it works so well with our lives as well. And it really matches with foundation. When you notice something is not right, do not proceed. Stop and start if you need to start, or stop and fix whatever it is that needs to be fixed. Now that we have that out of the way, let us get a bit more practical, because build your foundation on God sounds very nice and easy on paper, but what does that actually look like in real life? I feel like that's the question we should be asking ourselves sometimes. Like I like watching Christian humor, and someone is like, when you reach out to a friend and you're telling them about the struggles you're going through, and you're like, you just have to tune in to your spirituality, you have to tune in with God, you have to do so and so. And then it's like, okay, but like, can you speak in words? Like, can you speak it in a practical way? When you tell me I need to tune in with my spirituality, what are you meaning? Why can't you just say read your Bible and pray more? You know, that is kind of what I mean there. But I feel like for this to kind of make sense, I'm gonna use something that I know. I'm gonna use a gym analogy, yeah, because for the last 7-ish months, I have been consistent with the gym. Thank you very much. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. And it's been showing me interesting things. I mean, I've been showing up consistently. I've been lifting my weights, and I've been learning so much about my body. I've learned that I have muscles I never thought I had. I don't know how to explain it, but one thing that the gym teaches you very quickly is something called form. Form is the position you put your body in so that the movement you actually do works, and it is the difference between getting stronger or getting injured. You can lift heavy, you can sweat all you want, you can be the most consistent person ever, but if your form is wrong, you are either wasting your time or you are just hurting yourself. Form is that important. And the thing about form is that it doesn't always look impressive, I'll be honest. Sometimes it may look like lowering the weight you are carrying, which is something I had to do. I had to lower my weight. It can look like slowing down. Sometimes I like to do my reps fast, but for it to actually do what it needs to do, sometimes you need to slow down. And it can sometimes even mean going back to the basics. Like, okay, do the exercise without the weights and then add them later. Just, form over weight is what we do. And the thing is, form is what allows progress to be sustainable. Because if you have bad form, you are at a high risk of injury. And if you're injured, it's going to take so much time to heal. And after you heal, coming back to the gym is going to be a whole thing. So, in order to just avoid that whole ordeal, perfect your form over weight. And something I realized is that that's exactly how strong foundation with God works. I know it's crazy, but when you actually look around you, we have so many things speaking to us, or we have God in so many things speaking to us. A lot of us want spiritual results. We want growth. We want clarity. We want peace. We want joy. We want answered prayers. All these good things that come with being a child of God. We want to move weight, but we skip the form. We rush the process. We build habits that look spiritual from the outside, but aren't aligned on the inside. And I can give you a practical view of this. This can be like doing my Bible study twice a day, for the sake of posting, not for the fact that I am doing Bible study to be closer to God. And I feel like I kind of reached that point when it came with our Instagram page. If you've noticed, it's very dormant now. I was doing my Bible study because I felt pressured to show that I did my Bible study, and because I felt pressured to share what I learned in my Bible study, so you could see that I did Bible study, which is very, I mean, on the outside it looks very spiritual, but on the inside it is not aligned at all. And a strong foundation with God starts with alignment, not performance. That is a thing I had to learn. I also had to go back to the basics when it came to Bible study. I think a strong foundation with God would look something like going to God before going to people. It is something I am actively practicing. When something happens in my life, I tend to want to share immediately with someone, but I have learned to sit with the emotion or sit with the excitement and bring it to God in what I call therapy time with God. Yeah, it's basically me yapping. And then the other thing I think would be checking your motives, not just your actions. My motives to post my Bible study was for people to see that I have done my Bible study. Like, the action is there, but where is the motive? And I think that God really does care about our motives as much as our actions. But our motives, I can argue that they kind of go first. So motives over action. The other one would be choosing obedience even when it feels uncertain or it feels unclear. I'll give a prime example. Like, God might speak to you. Let's say He says, I want you to stop wearing a certain necklace. Maybe it's your favorite necklace. You don't understand why. You don't understand, like, what you're like, is it really God? Is it like, God, are you sure? I think obedience is always better than sacrifice. Um, there's a proverb that goes something along the lines of, it's it's better to prevent than to cure, something along those lines. So in this case, I'll also say just obey, prevent. Why go through the cure when you would have prevented it to begin with? I mean, yeah. And one thing I am learning is, whenever I am in doubt of what God is asking me to do, number one, bring it at His feet and check on whether it aligns with the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. If it aligns, then it is God. And if you're still doubting, ask yourself, will this thing benefit my life or not? Will it be pushing me closer to God or not? And if you find that all the answers are practically leaning in one way, go ahead, just do it. Just do it. You know? Yeah. Last but not least, returning to Him when you mess up instead of hiding in shame. I know it's very hard for us to do this because the world is very used to shaming us. And so we feel like, oh, I did something wrong. Let me just remove myself. Let me go hide. Let me not show my face again, because that is what the world has taught us. But God tells us, when you mess up, come back to me. It's kind of like when you are sick and you are avoiding to go to the doctors because you are sick. That's how I tell it to myself. So anytime I do something that I know is wrong, I am learning to own up to what I do. I am learning to own up to my actions and to my words. I'll go back to God and I'll be like, God, I did ABC, like this, like this, like that. I am coming back to you because you tell me. One thing about me, I will quote scripture. Come to God and tell Him, your word says, if I come to you, you will accept me. Okay, I don't know if like there's a word that says that verbatim, but you get the idea. And I think we've gone through this analogy a couple of times, but I like to use it. A kingdom that has a king and a prince, people who live in palaces, and then the prince soils his pants. Now, does that mean that he's no longer a prince because he soiled his pants? No, simply means he's a prince who soiled his pants and needs to be cleaned. After he's cleaned, no one will even know he soiled his pants. Same thing with us Christians. When we sin, when we fall, it does not take our Christian likeness out of us. When we sin, it does not remove the fact that we are God's children. It does not remove the fact that I am the apple of His eyes. I just need to be cleaned. I just need to be cleansed, and no one will even know it ever happened. And another thing, when God tells you He has forgiven you, please accept it and move along and forgive yourself, because denying that will be prideful as well. It will be kind of like saying, no, I am too sinful, I am too much of this to ever be forgiven. That is pride. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it is. And just like in the gym, God cares more about how you are moving than how much you are lifting. And this is my current gospel. I preach to people form over weight. God cares more about how you are moving more than how much you are lifting. Another thing about form, someone usually has to correct it. And correction doesn't mean that you are bad at it, it simply means that you are being trained. When I was new at the gym, I always felt embarrassed when the coach had to come to me and say, Debbie, chest out, Debbie, arch your back, Debbie, legs apart. I'm like, why there's so many rules? It felt embarrassing because I was like, other people are going to know that I'm not like a gym girl. But now I am at a place where I am correcting other people. And that is literally the same thing with our walk with God. We will be at a point where we're going to be needing some of these corrections, some of these prompting to be able to reach a level where we are the ones giving them out to people, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. God will pause your progress and say, let us fix your foundation, girl. The same way when you're doing your makeup and you put your foundation and you see it's a different shade of your skin, you stop and try to look for one that matches your skin. Because if you continue with that same foundation shade, it's going to take so much fixing or um so much product to kind of make it match your skin. So you're better off just getting one that matches your skin. You see how everything connects. You see how everything is literally the same thing. And God doesn't do it because He wants to delay you or because He doesn't want you to advance. He literally does it to protect you and to protect your time. There is nothing as frustrating as fixing something while you were near the end that you could have fixed in the very beginning. Like that thing can drive you crazy. That if you've been in that situation, you understand. So it's always better to fix something while you are still in the beginning stages of that thing, rather than waiting for it to continue, and then you reach somewhere you cannot finish, so you have to go back where you left the problem. And the part that really got me is good form becomes muscle memory. So if you already had good form, no matter how long you go without lifting, you will still be able to get the good form, because you will try it, and if the form is off, you're going to feel it. And such moments make you so thankful that you actually took your time to learn form. And in this context, that moment will make you so thankful that you actually took your time to build a strong foundation and a strong relationship with God. What I'm trying to say is the more you practice it, the more natural it feels. And over time, you will not have to overthink, or you will not have to think so hard about it, because your body just knows. And that's literally what happens when your foundation with God is built daily. Keyword here being daily, through prayer, through worship, through scripture reading, actually reading to understand, not just reading like a storybook. You know, that's how we build foundation. And in my notes, I wrote this down as through scripture that shapes your thinking, not just your captions. Because we have so many performative Christians out here. It's crazy. I used to be one of them, but we thank the good Lord. Anyways, yeah, so basically for us to actually have that foundation, we also have to be ready and willing to surrender even when we want to hold on. So learn to trust someone else than you. Learn to trust God more than you trust yourself. Learn to trust God more than you trust your solutions, more than you trust your need for control. I am running out of ideas, but I think you get the gist of it. All right, as we wrap up, I just want to leave this one thought with you. Pay attention to what you return to when life gets heavy. That's usually where your foundation is. I know that's a hard one to swallow because it called me out in all my government names. And if you're realizing that some things need to be undone before they can be rebuilt, that is not something to be ashamed of at all, because foundations aren't fixed overnight. This is a process. They are strengthened through daily actions, through small actions, through honesty with God, and the willingness to actually go back to the basics when necessary. Sometimes it is very, very important to do so. You are not behind, you are not failing, you are just learning how to perfect your form. And I feel like that's a reminder we really need to remind ourselves every day, especially with the age of the internet where it feels like life is moving fast. You can easily feel like you are behind and like you don't even have time to perfect your form, or you don't have time to fix your foundation. But that's a lie, because it's going to cost you so much in the future. So this week, before you rush to build, pause and ask yourself, what am I building on? And invite God into that space and into that answer. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who might need the reminder. And as always, take what resonates, question what doesn't. Don't just leave it out. Let us learn to ask questions when we don't understand rather than discarding the whole thing. Okay? Okay. And keep showing up for yourself, keep showing up in the presence of the Lord, and I promise you it will never, ever, ever be in vain. Anyways, this is me, Debbie, yapping too much, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye.